Hello and welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome back to All Geeks Aside and the continuing story of Arthur Curry Aquaman. As I said in the last episode, Aquaman does face off against Connor Kent's Superboy, and it is a inconsequential battle as it is broken up in the end. But as a result of this, Aquaman gets his cheap harpoon destroyed and is given a new top-of-the-line harpoon from Star Labs. This is also where Aquaman meets another of the Green Lantern Corps, since the rest of the Green Lantern Corps at this point are presumed dead and Kyle Rayner is the last Green Lantern. At this point in time also, the new King of Atlantis, King Taisley, felt that Aquaman was a threat, and he promptly sent an assassin to kill Aquaman, but unfortunately this assassin failed. Now Aquaman, as you notice up to this point, has a special place in ancient cultures, be it in the ancient Irish or the ancient Greek cultures. But before I get into that little tidbit, we have the return of both Thanatos, Arthur's would-be evil twin, and Mera, his estranged wife. And upon her return, she shows that she is still a little peeved with him, mostly because she is under the control of Thanatos, but also because he was not there for the funeral of their son. Aquaman follows Mera into the dimension of her birth and discovers that she has given birth to another son, Arthur Jr. Since at the beginning of this whole tale, we all must be still wondering how such an advanced race and advanced city was plunged to the deep ocean. Well, 9,600 years ago, a meteor struck the nation of Atlantis and caused it to plunge to the depths of the ocean. But it was no ordinary meteor. It was, in fact, a sentient AI ship that was now deep beneath the nation of Atlantis. It was an ancient dragon, yes, a dragon, by the name of Tiamat, who, if anyone who is a fan of the old Dungeons & Dragons cartoon or even the game will be familiar, this Tiamat was not even half as terrifying as that variant from Dungeons & Dragons. This was a dragon of the Anunnaki. Unfortunately, this Anunnaki are not the same Anunnaki from the foretelling of the Babylonian scriptures, which calls them a group of deities of biblical proportion, or, as the ancient astronaut theorist Zecharia Sitchin theorized, they are not the alien race from the planet Nibiru, who altered human DNA and made humans as we are today. In this universe, they are a race of alien dragons who were the enemy of what are called the hunter-gatherers, and they will come up a little bit later. But I will quickly summarize their involvement in this whole galactic escapade. So eons ago, the hunter-gatherers were a destructive race who destroyed everything in their wake. They decided then that they were going to change their nasty ways, and they ventured to our little planet millions of years ago, and they eradicated the dinosaurs for us. How nice. But because of their involvement, they also caused an ice age. They arrived again, and they decided to do some good this time. And it is through their interactions with early man that led to humans as we are today. While another group of hunter-gatherers decided to fiddle around and mate with the rays, thus creating the Atlanteans. And they created the first city of High Brazil. Now, the hunter-gatherers are also responsible in some part for the metahuman genes that some people have in the DC universe. The hunter-gatherers then left, but they were soon enslaved by a war. And this is where we are now. With Tiamat and his or her ship awakened, the Earth was yet again the target of the hunter-gatherers. But that's not all. Before Thanatos was killed by Arthur, he had declared war upon the surface. So, who would you send from the surface to see if a declaration of war from an almost ultimate powered city? Well, that would have been the Justice League, of course. And Aquaman heads out to the other Atlantean cities to bring them together to face the oncoming storm. He goes from High Brazil to Tir na Og. He manages to recruit some of the ancient protectors from the deep. Firstly, Atalan the Loner, Arion of High Brazil, Tempest, which is Aqualad's new name, Nuada of Tir na Og, Dolphin, the Sea Devil, and Power Girl, just to name a few. Aquaman leads his powerful Atlantean team on board the AI ship to Washington to face the enemy. But Tiamat was now not alone. He was now with Kordax and Koryak. As the battle between the Atlanteans and all else, Kordak is enraged that he cannot defeat Aquaman, and he decides to just kill himself. Also, the ancient city of Basilia is destroyed. But with all of this destruction, the hunter-gatherers just up and leave. Aquaman may have been a member of the Justice League up to this point, but the League were never really a team-up kind of crew, unless the fate of the entire world was at risk. Well, one such time was when Dr. Destiny attacked and threatened the world. It is now that Aquaman, Batman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter team up. Did you hear that, DC movies? The original Justice League were back. But this fight was in a hidden area. Their first proving ground was when the White Martians attacked. No. Attacked wouldn't really be the good word. It would be a invasion. That's a better word for what they did. The White Martians had all but been driven to extinction eons ago, but some of them had remained in existence. They had been put into extinction due to a civil war on Mars, due to their savage natures. They regrouped their forces and they formed a hyperclan who tried to take over the Earth. To get their plan to work, they first struck down all the fire-wielding heroes and villains. The Martians had all but won the war, but the quick thinking of Batman and John Jones, along with Aquaman, the White Martian invasion was halted. But the Martians, they remained on Earth. Due to John Jones's quick thinking, he tricked them into thinking that they were now simple humans. And a piece of information I left out up until now, and I did mention him briefly before this whole attack by the White Martians, the character Kordax. You see, Kordax is first and foremost an Atlantean, but not only that, he was in fact of royal blood. But here's the kicker of this whole thing. He was cursed from birth. Now this curse, he is more fish than man, and the Atlanteans feared him. Think creature from the Black Lagoon. And as a result, he was cast out at birth to a dimension, so as not to sully the good name of the royal family. But, as with all royal families, the secret eventually got out, and the secret would be forever known as the Curse of Kordax. Now all of this will become clear as we continue on in our story. Aquaman gets called to investigate a bottomless trench in the ocean by Deep Blue and the Sea Devils. On their way down to the Hadal Zone, Deep Blue is grabbed by something and taken away. But the troop continue on their journey. It is here that they encounter a hideous Black Manta. He no longer has use for his traditional scuba suit or his ray-shooting manta helmet, as he is now a mutated manta. The arch-nemesis battles fiercely with Aquaman at the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. There they are both even attacked by an ancient Leviathan long thought dead. The Leviathan devours Manta as a tasty snack, and then tries the same with Arthur. But Arthur uses his psychic fish-talking ability to fend off the unwanted attention of the Leviathan. Arthur then escapes and returns to the surface, rescuing Deep Blue from some unknown creature on the way. Arthur then notices that he is covered in scales. They head for Arthur's home Atlantis, but as with everything with Arthur, when he leaves Atlantis for an extended period of time, somebody tries to take over the throne. And this time it is the King Shark yet again. And then again, Aquaman and Shark battle, and again, Aquaman defeats the Shark, using his psychic fish abilities to defeat him. This causes Shark to revert to his normal self as a normal shark, But Aquaman has now also changed. He has even more scales and his hands are now webbed. He's beginning to look more like Kordax. It seems to have some correlation to him using his psychic abilities in an extended fashion. Now Aquaman heads out to find the answers. Arthur travels through time to figure out that he's actually been afraid of failure, and as both a king and a man. And with him learning all of this and figuring out everything that has gone on, he is reverted back to normal. Well, some semblance of normal at least. His hands are still webbed, but that's okay, he's royalty. And these things tend to happen when your family is related. Now, since Aquaman is involved in many, be them small and inconsequential adventures, and really didn't play much of a big thing in my mind, most of them just involving other Atlantean people, or at least creatures of the deep. The big thing that happens after this is when the fair city of San Diego fell off the continent and is now submerged under the Pacific Ocean. Now all life in San Diego was presumed wiped out by this atrocity. But when they discover a survivor, a child washed up with a peculiar addition, this boy seemed to be unharmed, but he had been under the water for hours after the earthquake sunk half the city. So Aquaman goes out to investigate, to inform the good people of San Diego what had happened. I guess hearing it from a Justice League member is a good thing. Now, I'm not saying that a public announcement is a good idea, but Gotham City would probably have been better off if Batman every once in a while was like, hey, Mr. Freeze froze all the highways, so maybe drive a little bit slower for the next few days. Now, while Aquaman is giving this PSA, a girl emerges from the water. Arthur has Martian Manhunter beam them both to the Justice League headquarters, which is ultimately how he saved her life. With the girl safe in a bath of water, Martian Manhunter uses his telepathic powers to show Arthur her memories of what had transpired. Aquaman emerges from this angry, says that he must get down to the accident site. There are more survivors. Aquaman must go to these survivors and give them the bad news that they can never return to the surface again. The survivors are horrified, to say the least. A superhero's work is not all supervillains and aliens. Sometimes they must be the bearers of bad news. But when Aquaman is informed of a strange machine, he has to go and investigate. And he takes the girl with him. Her name was Lorena. They are then attacked by a giant mutated sea slug. But this was not the real reason. It was in fact a scientist by the name of Anton Geist. But he did not want to kill anyone. No, he was a proponent of climate change, and he believed that if the oceans rose, that surviving in the deep was humanity's only hope. Lorena didn't see it that way and beat the piss out of him. Geist is then forced to help the victims of San Diego. Now, Aquaman is giving the unrelenting job as being the ruler of now Sub Diego, as it is nicknamed. Aquaman patrols the submerged streets. Just because the city is submerged, I guess, crime will also always find a way. Aquaman is not patrolling alone either. His partner is a massive orca, ready to eat any criminal. But who would be ignorant to think that they could evade Aquaman in his own backyard? Enter a villain by the name of the Eel. The Eel is somewhat of a metahuman, but he's only here because I actually like this story. His power was a weak version of telekinesis, although he did manage to take over the local mob on Sub Diego. So Aquaman has faced countless enemies, mostly sea creatures and other Atlanteans, but the mob, not Aquaman's true foray. But who has expertise to take out the mob? Who has cleaned up the dark underbelly of a city? Who could help him clean up Sub Diego? Why, Batman, of course. He goes to Batman and gets some tips, and also a special surprise. Aquaman goes to the eel and shows him why he is king of the seas. Aquaman uses the special surprise that he got from Batman, which was actually a dampener, to dampen down his powers. But now there's the goons. Aquaman tells them that he is taking eel and I expect you to wait here until I get back. When they refuse, he summons some little lionfish to barricade their exit, and they are promptly held in place by small fish. Now, Eel would come to get a second wind and release himself from the dampener. This time he gave Arthur a run for his money. This time Aquaman had to fight him with everything that he had, and he called upon some plankton to defeat Eel. And he doesn't kill him, but he does tell him that he's going to send him to prison, and that he's to give others a message. He's going to tell them to stay away from Sub Diego, that it is under my protection. And now we have one of the major events from the DC universe, and that will be Infinite Crisis. Again, I will be doing a whole series on Infinite Crisis, Crisis on Infinite Earths, all of these major arcs that affect everybody in the DC universe. But let us just say that Aquaman and his allies defend Sub Diego from an assault of the Secret Society of Supervillains. Basically, it is a reverse Justice League made up of Alexander Luthor Jr. and 5 others. But it was not the Society who destroyed anything on this day. It was the magical and eternal Spectre. The Spectre had laid waste to the city of Atlantis, but Aquaman had bigger fish to fry at this point. With Atlantis destroyed, the survivors of Atlantis had to be carted away to seek refuge in Sub Diego. Arthur then went to battle in Metropolis, facing it off against one of Batman's fiercest foes, Bane. But when the evil Black Manta realizes that Aquaman is actually weak at this point, and it is the perfect time for him to attack, he tries his hand at beating him. Not a good idea to attack Arthur at this point. Arthur had finally had enough. All of Arthur's anger, his rage, and his failures were taken out on Manta. Arthur destroys his submarine and leaves Manta to be devoured by a school of sharks. With the people of Sub Diego still bound to the ocean, Aquaman is begged by Lorena, who had now taken the moniker of Aquagirl, to try and find a cure for some of the people of Sub Diego. Aquaman seeks a parley with the ancient sea gods, who agree to give him the power to raise Sub Diego from the depths. But as a result, Aquaman becomes something dark, monstrous. Aquaman becomes the dweller in the depths, and he had no memories of his past before this point. Dweller was all-powerful and remembered nothing of his past, so he goes off traveling, and he eventually comes across another like him, not monstrous and all-powerful, but somebody who had been trapped on the surface who had Atlantean powers, and his name was Arthur Joseph Curry. Now, we learned that Arthur Joseph was a relative of Thomas Curry and had received his powers from his father's own genetic experiments. Dweller decides to take Arthur Joseph under his fin and encourages him to become a hero. Dweller is finally able to get some semblance of memories back when Mira figures it out, that he is in fact Arthur. Dweller was once again Arthur, but when the undead corpse assassin named Narwhal attacked and killed Arthur, we now get the truth behind the truth. Arthur Joseph was in fact a split of the original Arthur, and with the original Arthur dead, Arthur Joseph takes the name Joseph Curry and continues the legacy of Aquaman. Now, I think that does it for Aquaman. Seeing him portrayed by the fantastic Jason Momoa in Justice League was absolutely perfect. A man who embodies fierceness, whether it was playing the great Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones or the warrior Ronan Dax in, ironically enough, Stargate Atlantis. There's no one better that could have played Aquaman, Arthur Curry. It's even if he is evolved from rays. So, thanks for listening. I've been testing out some new things. Let me know what you think. Leave a review over on iTunes if you want, or if you enjoyed the show, if you didn't like the show, and you want to let me know anything that I've been doing wrong, you can find me over on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm at All Geeks Aside on all platforms. I even have a Twitter. If you want to send me an email, if you don't want to put it out over social media, you can email me at allgeeksaside@gmail.com. Also, I want to give a shout out to someone who wants to literally empower you with nature. She is Heather over at the Sunshine and Power Cuts podcast, and she just did 11, yes, I did say 11 live streams in 7 days. And you can find all of those over on YouTube, and you need to see them. I thoroughly enjoyed them. My favorite was when she had Bandrew from Bandrew Says and the YouTube channel Podcastage. Now go check out these two shows. Let them know where you found them. And thanks again for listening. And thanks to all the patrons over at patreon.com who help support this show and every other show up to this point. See you next time.